All right, I'm sharing now. All right, so I'm going to do a recap of what we did yesterday. We after everyone joined, we had a breakthrough into what variables are and data types. We went into arrays, objects. We did not cover loops yesterday, but I'm hoping that we would have enough time to cover it up today. They went into functions. Models won't make sense yet until when we start testing. That would then the models don't make sense again. They've also introduced some modern JavaScript syntax or way of writing codes. Then I hope to, after today, give a brief assignment on a to-do app, something very small, so that everyone can have a brief of practical length against the next class we're going to be having. I'm also going to start with my VS Code now. So in the meanwhile, while others join, I think we have 1 more minute to go. Have you guys gone through your VS Code? Have you been able to install it? Did you have any issue installing it as well? In case you have, you can drop it in the group actually, and try in the chats here, and I'll make sure that when I'm done, we can then revisit it so that we can help you out with your installation. And if you've installed it as well, you can please drop a message in the group to signify that you've successfully installed it. Awesome. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start again by going through just a brief into what we did yesterday. We talked about variables and how to declare variables. Also discussed the difference between using a var, let, and a const. Var, it means that it's available globally everywhere. Let is just within a particular scope, and you can change the value of these two. But when you declare something in the constant, you cannot change the value again. Right. So we then went into data types as well, talking about the different data types we had up until functions, then introducing this way of writing this function, which is the modern way of writing functions, right? So now we're going to move to DOM manipulations. I know a number of you here are testers, so this will definitely come into good use when you are also trying to test the UI, trying to target an element on the UI and all. So what is DOM, right? So DOM in this case is everything you see on your website. So on the web page, let me be very precise. What does that mean? If you go to please give me a second. Right, so a DOM is everything you see on the web page. Yesterday we used Google as an example, right? So going to when you go to Google, when you see that very page where we have the image and the text and input boxes, and that's everything that makes up a DOM. So essentially, right? Let's say we go to again google.com. Please, can you guys confirm you can see my page still? Let me stop sharing and sharing this on this. And use Zoom out. Not okay. Okay, I hope it's clear enough now. Right, so what is a DOM? I mean the VS Code. Oh, okay. Okay, I think when I speak to VS Code, I'll be sure to zoom out. All right, so if you can see my browser, I have Google.com on my browser here, and you can see the image here, the input box where you can type, the buttons here, as well as the text on the menu. Now, this is what we call a DOM. When you inspect here, we'll have different kind of item that makes okay. Now, if I come here and I delete this whole body here, everything becomes blank. What that means is I've deleted the DOM. And if I do a Control Z, now everything comes back. Now, the fact that I deleted it doesn't mean that I've deleted Google's webpage. I just deleted it right only on my browser. It doesn't affect any other person's browser. So it's just temporal change. So what do we mean when we say manipulating the DOM? It means that you're changing something on the DOM. So for example, we have Google search here. I can inspect it. And to go the way you have to do is just right click on wherever you want and click on inspect. So you can come here to, change this area label, and this is where the value is. I can call it to some tiles search, right? If I change that, I come to value and I can say tile search. Again, this is just temporary, just on my browser. So this is what we call DOM manipulation, but this is not the way to go about when we mean DOM manipulation. Now, what I essentially want to show you here is then how do we then manipulate the DOM? Because everybody does it, right? So there are some times that someone would log in and you want to take some certain actions. For example, if they log in, you want to change the picture here, you can see my full name here. So those are the kind of ways we do DOM manipulation. As soon as someone takes an action, you want to do you want to also take some certain actions after that, right? Let's say after logging, you want to seeing the details on the page, you want to show some pictures, that's when the manipulation comes in. So how do you update and target these things? Now, so DOM manipulation is one of the things we're going to, but I want to talk about APIs. Are you guys familiar with APIs? Does anyone here or has anyone here worked with any API or even know what an API is? In case anyone does, you can please share knowledge with the class so that we learn one or two from you. Okay, I will take that silence as to assume that nobody knows about API and what it means. Okay, good. So please.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Hi. Good evening, Chinonso.
All right. Just a bit of yeah. Thank you, Muta, for this. We're just getting started, but I know it's going to be a wonderful session. Okay. Just a brief one. API is application programming interface, like the backend. When you want to talk to an application via the backend, just like would I call it a window or a door where the backend interfaces with the front end, right? You have the APIs at the backend where you have your UI on the front end. So it's from, you have your push, your get, your posts from the front end, you post maybe a record, it goes through the API to the backend. Then if you want to fetch maybe a record or data from the backend, you use your get to call the data to the front end. Basically, in the nutshell, that's what API does. I don't know if I'm correct, and just the little I know, I'm just sharing.
Awesome, So you are very correct. Alicia, yes. Thank you, Chinonso.
Yeah, to add to what Chinonso said, API stands for Application Programming Interface. More like a messenger that allows two softwares to communicate, interact, to talk to each other. Basically, the function of the API, to my own understanding, are just a basic three for communication, which helps to differentiate software system and exchange of data. And the second one is abstraction, where we have in high complexity and also show what is being needed. And the other one is a reusability that provide a ready-made function to developers that don't really have help them to have, provide a ready-made function to developer, which enhances them not to have this struggling of reinventing the wheel or doing something in a very difficult way. I can cite a simple example in the real world, like when we're thinking of API in a waiter in a restaurant. First, you, the customer, tell the waiter what you want. That is a kind of a request. The waiter can give you order to the kitchen. That's the system. And when the waiter brings the food back to you, that's like a response. So this is a kind of a tech example where we can find a web application as well. In short, I can say API is a bridge that lets one program or service interact with another safely and efficiently. Then we have different type of API. We have the REST, we have the SOAP and the web API, which are the simple things for beginners like us. Thank you very much.
Amazing. I think I need not say a number of things after hearing from you guys. To buttress what Additional just said, I'm going to show you guys an image. right? You can see my screen, right? If you see this picture, you see back end at the top. In the middle, you see front end. In the middle, so you see API. So you can put it in the perspective on the real life scenario where you go to a restaurant, right? And you want to eat or you're there to eat. But the fact that you want to eat some certain meals, you have to make some requests, right? You have to say, I want the Alfredo pasta, whatever it is your order is, you make a request for it. Now, who do you then tell about this request? You tell the waiters. The waiters here, they are the one that will then carry your request to the backend. Backend in this case is the kitchen, right? You can tell us table 17 wants this order in this very specific way. Then the backend cooks it, right? Gives it back to the waiter and takes it back to the front end. Now, what do we call front end, back end? Actually, we know what API is now. We know that they carry messages, they carry requests, and they come back with responses. That's all we know. But what is front end in real life now? Front end today is your mobile application, your browsers, right? In most scenarios, those are what we term as front end. And what are backend? Backends are just servers sitting somewhere, waiting for a request from there. So to put this into more technical perspective, right? We'll then look at our login again. You open your Instagram, Instagram tells you to enter your email address and password. Now, when you enter your email and password, it is the communication between the front end and the back end, which is your mobile app in this case, and Instagram server. It's communicating through a REST API. What that means is that we then enter, as soon as you press enter or login, the API request goes straight to the backend as the server. They try to validate to see if the credentials are right. They also return a response to you. Now, the response will come in two ways. It can either be successful, or right. So it means that whenever those requests come back, the API itself is all responsible for that journey of taking your credentials to the server. And this happens like depending on how far the server is, how far the backend is. Sometimes it's a split second, a second, microseconds. So this will happen very fast. Now I'm giving you this very because so that when we go straight into the API as well, or talking about APIs as a whole, you have a better understanding, and that gives you a back context. So now to start with, let's go into what DOM manipulation is. Like I mentioned, I'm going to start up the my server like I did yesterday. So let me just start again so that you guys see exactly how I'm doing it. So here's my VS Code. It's if it's too zoomed in for you, you can let me know. Right, I'm going to zoom out so I don't so you guys need. So now my server is still running. So, but I'm not going to start all over again. So to stop it, all you have to click is that very box that you see there. To start it, so what that does is to start it, and remember this exactly what we talked about last time. Now, what do we want to achieve here? We already have this my Google search. What we want to do entirely is to just create some data. So what we want to do exactly, we want to create, delete, edit, edit or update as well. This data that we find on the DOM. Just give me a second. Okay, good. So how do we create a data on the DOM using JavaScript? All right. The way we can do that is to come here. Don't forget that when we run our program, everything runs. From start to bottom automatically runs. Right. Now these functions will not run until we fire them. So to fire them, all we have to do is, again, don't forget, we call the name. After writing the function, we then type the name and put a parenthesis in front. This will initiate it, right? So I'm going to take this away. So the first thing I want to do is also, let's add a button. Directly to it. Let's call this, so I'm going to do a bit of CSS here as well, which is to style the PDB so that it doesn't just look very blank like this. Right, so let me create my folder here. I want to call this my let's call it styles, right? And inside the styles folder, we want to have something called, let's say, style.css. Now, if you're not familiar with CSS, like I mentioned yesterday, CSS is used for styling the page. It's what gives the page that very vibrant look, right? And to start with, what I want to do is I want to target the body and say I want to align all the or everything we have on the page. I want to put it in the middle of the page. I don't want it to be to the left or to the right. I just want it to be in the middle. So I'm going to start with text align center. Now, this is usually used to center your text to the page. Now, you'll notice I type body here. This is not just something that I'm typing off the top of my head. This right here is coming from body here. Now, we can target head. It's a special attribute, right? It's just configurations we put inside there, like the title of our page. Sorry, the title of our very page. And some meta details. Right, target this, but this is where our content lives, right inside this body. Everything we put inside this body, you can then target it from here. Now, for this very body, we've said we want our text to be in the center, right? By the time I go back to the page, I noticed that my text is still to the left, but I was expecting to be in the middle like this, right? Why isn't it working? And that's because we've only just created the file, but we've not imported it into our file here, our project. So I'm going to come here again. So I'll just link. Right. So to link a CSS to a page, all we have to do is use the link, the rest of style sheet, and also the name of the file itself. Now, don't forget that if our style.css was directly in the page, that would have made sense. This would have worked. But again, because we already created the folder, so we need to put /styles for style. Then this would work. Now, if I comment this out by clicking on or by pressing command / on my keyboard, that style will be disabled. So this is also how to comment on CSS, right? So I'm going to just Control Z and put that I want it exactly here. So we have something called ID and classes. What's ID and what's a class? It's that special name. If you have your words here, right? You guys are familiar with what we call a wiki. Honestly, I don't know what the equivalent of that is in other tribes. But wiki is that special name we create for someone when we give it to them. It's usually tied to the story behind the child's birth and all. So it's very special. And a lot of times you would notice that sometimes someone has an wiki, which is a name that is just that person that bears a name. No, it doesn't mean that nobody else bears it in the world. Just that it's just very scarce. And that's not very popular. Right? So what am I how do we differentiate between an ID and a class? I will use we have a lot of elements on our pages. Some will not have any class, some will not have any ID, but a lot of them will have classes, a lot of them will have IDs. Now, when do we use a class? The class is more like a special attribute we give to a group of elements. So this div now, I'm going to give it the class of title. Now, writing not change, but if I come to my DOM and inspect it, automatically I'll see class of title here. So it means that anytime I say for all the titles on this page, you guys should delete or you guys should change it, this would also be affected. And if I create a button and I say submit, and I call it submit, right? I say a button that says submit as well. But if I don't want to give this, it doesn't have type. However, I want to give it an ID of let's say for a button. Now I want to have this to say description as well. Okay. It's a very popular text, automated text, like a gibberish text that we use in generating. If you don't have any text from, you don't something else. I think it's Latin. It's just something we use in generating text, right? So I want to call this description. Now, how can we target all of these things? You notice that I'm giving this a class, I'm giving this a class, I give this an idea. Now, let's assume we have a class called, we'll go to a school, right? And there's a class called, let's say we go to primary 4, and we're trying to look for people that owe in school fees, right? We enter and we say, all the boys stand up. Now, we've, in that case, addressed the class. When I say class, I don't mean the primary 4 itself, the class of gender, a gender class precisely. We say all boys, all the boys stand up. Now, all the boys will stand up. If I say down, you notice they started.
Hello, Mukta. We couldn't hear you for a bit. Can you just take that again?
Let's say, only some part of words. I'm not going to use the word authority. I can give both of them a class of authority. If I say that, if I come to the class and say that, who are the members of authority in this class? Please stand up. Then the class captain and the assistant will both stand up. That is a class. But they both also have respective IDs. So class is just used to group items or elements together. Why ID is really more specific, right? Now let's go ahead to start manipulating our DOM. Now we have what we call what we have a button here. We have our, but it's looking very ugly. So let's give it some what's it called? Some styling. First of all, I want to come here. So this is for the body. What I'm doing is that I'm saying all the items in the body. I want everything to be in the middle. So I can come here to say they didn't target classes. So how do you talk to a class in CSS? We put a full stop and say title, the name of the class, open our curly bracket. And what I want to tell this class to do, I want the size, I want the font size to be bigger. I don't like the font, it's too small. So I come and say font size, and I can give it RAM. Now, just like using RAM here because some of you don't even know CSS. You might not even familiar with RAM, but all you're familiar with CSS pixels. So there are a lot of values you can give. You can say RAM, which is more responsive. You can say 30 pixels. We can also use PC. I'm sorry, it's something people have never seen. Most people don't use that. I'm going to use it as RAM because I like responsiveness. It's looking way better. Now, the title at the top and the bottom is too close to each other. So I want to push anything beneath the title. I want to push it down a bit. I can just connect to the margin bottom. Again, VS Code is so smart to know that, to try to give you some autofocus, right? And what we can do is go with insurance and then give it our value of 20 pixels. Okay. Now that's fine for my title. I think I'm okay with that. So let's go to this description now. Now, description of 4 RM is too big. I don't like that. So I like to give it 16 pixels because that's usually more like the font size you find across board, like when it comes to text reading. Also, the text seems to be too much at the top. So I'm going to put the padding top here, or let's say 30 pixels as well. So what that does is to add space at the top of the body. So inside the body, then at the top, what's it called? Inside of it, to add the space at the top. So this is looking better. So our button is looking way too ugly, right? So now, there are a couple of ways we can target this button. We can talk to it by using this ID and also or using this button. Now, if you notice, my screen is frozen and not moving. Let me just reshare. So I'm resharing again. Please let me know as soon as you can see it. Going back to my VS Code now. So we can talk to this button in different ways, right? We can target it with this button, just like we did the body. You can see body doesn't have a full stop, it does not have, we just code it directly. So this is how you can target elements directly. And how do we know the title to use? By the opening title we use here. Like I said, we cannot target head. So the body itself, we can use it here. We can also call div. Mind you, we can only have one body, and we can only have one head, and we can only have one HTML in the page. Now, there's something called main as well. We can only have one of that, but we're not going to access that at the moment. Now, we can also call div. But look at it, if you call div, that means all the divs on our page get separated. So if I come here to say that div display none, I want to hide it, right? It's a very bad practice because everything that has div then disappears on the page. And we use div a lot. We use div in wrapping items together, right? In this case now, I can even change this to key tag, which is a paragraph tag, right? So we can use this here for text. We can also use this for text as well. But essentially, div usually used to wrap or put a lot of things together, like group items. So I can have this and put of them in a div. That's me grouping them. Now, I want to change this button now, but since we already have an example of targeting body with this way, I'm going to target this ID instead. Just kindly reshare your screen. Okay. Okay, I'm going to reshare my screen now. Let me know as soon as you can see my screen again. Entire screen. Okay, so I'm showing this again now. If you can see my screen again, please you can just drop me a message so that I take a look at it. Now, we have something. We want to target this our button because our button is way too ugly, right? I want it to be sharper and has more finesse to it. Not yet visible. Okay. My network is quite good, I think. So can someone confirm they can see my screen and what you can see? Okay, I can see your screen. Thank you, Rose. All right, awesome. So I'm just going to, I think it's probably network, but I'm sure you'll catch up as I'm going forward. So if you want to check your network, you can go to fast.com to see how fast your internet is to be sure that your internet is not lagging. So mine here says about 1 or something MB per second, right? So that's pretty much fast. So I can tell for all unless it's Teams that is having the issue. But I'm sure that if your network is slow, you would eventually catch up with it as the screen is updating. So let's start our button a bit so that we don't waste too much time on this. So to start the button, right, I'm just going to go to submit BTN. Right, you notice that as I'm doing this, I put an hash instead, not a full stop this time around. So this is how we target IDs. So what do I want? I don't want a border around it. Borders around buttons are usually very ugly. So I put borders of none, right? Awesome. I want it padding. Let's give it more width. width of, let's say, 100 pixels, height of 100 pixels, the amount, so I'm going to like 30. 130, 50, 150. That's color. Maybe they like blue color, not okay. But let's do a brown color actually. Thank you, there. And a color of white. So I'm just using different syntaxes so you can see that what's possible. We can use code here. We can use direct name of the color as well. But there is like 10 pixels or some. Okay, 5. Awesome. Okay, so now that we have this all that checks out, I'm going to put a cursor of pointer. So this cursor pointer, what it does is when I put my mouse on it, the mouse changes. So, right. So let's go into JavaScript straight up, right? No, please, I'm going to get access to my. Oh, how can you have access to? Okay, don't. You can just keep dropping your questions, and I'll keep answering them. As we after this. Says no audio. I hope you guys can hear me. Now, what do we want to start injecting something into the DOM? Now that we have our templates, we don't want to start, doing something where when we click on this button, we want certain action to happen. Now, how do we bind this to it? This is where our function comes in. Remember, I said that function is always written somewhere. And what a function would is a list of actions to do whenever we invoke it. Now, and remember that too is that whenever you are writing something, you are building a program, the first thing you should ask yourself is, what do I want to achieve? First of all, I want that when I click on this button, right? If I click on this button, an alert should come up and say that I'm an awesome engineer, right? That's the accolade I want to give myself. So I come here to say, my script. Remember, we have it here, and I come here to say, again, I'm going to be using ES6. ES6 is the modern way of writing JavaScript. Now, this function here is the old method of writing it, and this is the method of writing a function. They all have their own different way they vary, or sometimes even in modern applications, you see find this approach. Now, once you constant greet user, right? Don't forget our equal to this called an arrow function. This arrow here is called an arrow function, right? And what do I want? I want this to do something whenever I call on it. Right, I want it to alert something. So this is how we call alert. Alert Mukhtar is an awesome engineer. You can see, what did I put inside here? It is a string. This is where data type then comes to play. Now, so far, all through the entirety of this course, I will not use the data type that I have not mentioned, right, because I've covered all the data type. So this is a string. This is it could be a word, it could be a sentence, right? So I'm sending it to, I can put anything here actually, as far as the number or a string. Now, I put a column here. I never mentioned it last time, but this column here, or this this column here, what semicolon, what it does precisely is to tell JavaScript that this is the end of my line. Now, it is not compulsory, right? But it's good for readability. Even when you come to your code, you know, okay, so this is the end of the line. You don't like full stop. You don't like when you write a sentence, you put full stop. That's what this guy does. So I'm not going to add it here. Now, how do we then use this on our page? We already have our HTML here. We have our JavaScript here. So with what we want that when this button is clicked, that's when this message should be alerted. So I come here to my button as an attribute in between this opening tag here. In between, it can be before the ID or after the ID, it doesn't matter. But we come here to say on click. On click, what do we want to do? We want to pass in the name of this function here, which is what? Greet user. Right? Now, when we come this click, when we attach this click user and we come here, the exact message that we put there shows up to say Mukhtar is an awesome engineer. So sometimes when you go to a web page and you see this alert box, that's exactly how they did it. There's no magic to it. So now don't forget that we're invoking a function, not a variable, not just any variable name. But this variable is a special variable. You can see it is a function, not a string, not a number, right? We assigned it to be a function. So it's important that we put these parentheses. So that anytime I come here, our alert shows up and I can click OK, I can even do something. Let's add one more function to say constant get username, right? We can say it's equal to, again, don't forget our arrow function. Now, what do I want in this case? I want a prompt, right? And what do I want here? I want, let's even give it a variable, say constant username is equal to prompt. And we can say, what is your name, right? Now, what do we want to do with this username that we stored? We don't want to do anything with it yet. But how do we then use this get username? I can come here to change this to say, I can change it. I don't want to greet the user again. I want to, get username. Or let's even say, I leave the greet user and I say, what is your name, right? Let's console.log our answer. Remember, console.log is to log any data at all into your browser, into the console of your browser. So by clicking, it says, you can see the message there that says, what is your name? I can say Mukhtar Yusuf, right? Now let's go to our log. If I click on OK, I've submitted it. If I come to my console.log here, I can see my name here. Okay, so anything I type here, if you can say MAY, right? And I click on OK, it's going to show up here. So this is that sometimes you collect data from the user as well, right? So we've talked about alerts, we've talked about username here. So how do we then manipulate the DOM? So what if I want to change? So anytime the answer is MAY in the submission, I want this to change to hello, the name of the user. So for example, I say I enter Mukhtar as my name. I can then take that value and render it on the screen, right? Now, how do I then change this? Remember that we've already typed it here, so there's no changing it. We've statically typed it here. So which then brings me to the introduction of the if-else condition, right? Now, what if I want to say, when you're greeting the user, if the name is MAY, we want to greet the user, or we want to change this title here, right? And if it's otherwise, we just want to say, we don't know you. All right, so I'm going to come here, and I'm going to give you a special one. I'll call it ID. Remember that this, so the reason I'm giving this an ID is because it's special, right? It holds something special. It's not just like an ordinary text. Now, we can give it a class of title as well, meaning that, we still want it to be as big as title, but we still want to give an ID called, let's say user name. We call it like this. Right, so in this username, how do we target it? We can come here to say, whenever we are greeting users, I'm going to give this get username, right? We can say that different ways we can target. So first on the list, we can do a document dot get element. So as you're typing, this code again is smart enough to suggest this to you, right? Get element by ID, because again, we're going for an ID. What's the name of our ID, right? Is username. So let's first console.log it. All right, I'll do a console.log this. Okay. A good practice would be to give it a name. Let's say constant. Okay. Let's say prompted. Let's call this prompted username. Don't forget, this is we're already making use of. We're already making use of variables in this case, so it's not string to you anymore. So constant username here, we cannot invoke it before. So let's do this. Right. Hello, maybe it's too fast. What I'm just trying to get is let's say where the ID. We can, so we're going to make it blank, but for now let's do MEY inside here. So if we do this, we can then come here to say username dot, or you can say text content. There are different ways you can get the text from there. But let's say right, you can see me is there, is there. Let me separate this a bit more. So now we can, let me even remove this guy here. I'm picking it again. Let's do MEY. Now we have the DOM here. Now, reason why I'm typing directly is that so that you see exactly for what this returns is what makes up that element on the DOM or in the DOM, right? And should I come here, what does this made that we have here? What does it look like? This is what is represented. So if I come in and delete now, it will disappear, right? Because I can see that our class and our ID is here, so everything shows up just as we expect. So now, just give me a second. Not at all. Okay, so I'm going to change this to prompted username because we want that value to be here. So again, we want an if condition. So if conditions are just like how it implies conditionals, right? Where if a condition is met, take this action. Right? And how do we write such conditions in JS, right? We can decrement to say if, right? We'll put the bracket here and the curly bracket. Now, here will be our condition. So what do we want? What action do we want? We want to initiate whenever a condition is met. You can say alert user found. Now, what if the condition is not met? What do we want to do? We can also dictate that by saying else, right? You can say user not found. Now, what is this condition? If we run our code now, it will break, and that's because condition does not exist. So this condition now, we are typing it as if it's a variable, but that's entirely not exactly. How do we go about this condition? So we want to get the value of this very username. So whenever it's missing a certain value, we say alert user found. But if the value is not met, all we want to say is maybe like this very user not found precisely. Right now, let me. So I will make it better. Remember that when we want to write the string, we put it inside quote like this. So what if we want to join different things together? For example, we want to always alert the name of the user. So let's say welcome user, mail or whatever it is we've entered here. So there's something called ideally, back in the days, if we want to do this, we would actually have to say, let's say username plus, or let's say welcome plus. What this will do is then tell you that welcome plus username. But over the time, people have been making mistakes with all this plus. are forgetting to let's say put plus in some places. You know, some people want to use comma somewhere because you want to use comma again, you have to do plus again and put those comma here. Right? So it became very stressful. So in modern JavaScript, we have something called we have a better way of concatenating this thing by using backtick. Now this will be a special this on your keyboard. I'm sure you find it maybe you click that in. So it's like a single quote, but it's a bit bent. Now, if you want to access variables inside here, you then have to put the $sign and the curly bracket. Then we can say prompted username here. And all you have to do is just say welcome, you know, this, or let's do a console.log just to be very safe. Now, remember that we've not had our condition yet. But I mean, so far, is there any question? Do you guys have any feedback? Is there anything that's confusing so that I can tackle that right on the spot? Anyone? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay, I'll take that as a no. Let's zoom out. So the sense zoom out, that means it's so in your face. So is this better? Is this too much? Is this better now? Can you tell me if this is better? No. Ability zoom. Okay, close. Okay, how is it now? Okay, how is it now? I just zoomed in now. Okay, good, awesome. All right, so let's just continue because time is against us, so you can attend to questions. So this condition here, what do we want? So we want a particular keyword, which is main. And what is our keyword? Let's say constant keyword here. I'll put it in capital letter because again, it's a special thing I want I want it to stand out as a variable name. So I'm calling it main, right? No. So if we find our user who is main, we're going to greet the user. But if not, we're not going to greet the user. And don't forget that we also want to we also want to change the name of or change the value of this, right? So I come here to say that if username, which we have here, I'm going to take this, I'm going to comment this out, which we have here is let's say dot value is equal to let's say whatever variable here, which is keyword. Right. We wanted to greet that very user. Right. But if it's not username, okay, no, actually it's content username we're going to use, not username. But when you say content username is equal to keyword, we want to greet this very user. But if not, we want to say want to console log that user is not found. So if I come here and I say, my name is Mukhtar, and and we say, okay here, you tell us the user not found. Now we are still logging this one. We don't log it anymore because we don't need it. Now again, I come and see that my name is Yusuf, right? It still tells me user not found. What if I then say my name is MAY, right? Let's watch what happen here. It tells me again user not found. I'm going to do that because you may not have seen it. User not found. But if you look at it, I actually did type MAY. why is this still telling me user not found? So let's go back to our code. So when comparing items from JavaScript, we have 3 equal to that you can use, and you can also use 2. Now, 3 equal to means that you are very strict. You want to be very strict with your comparison. So it doesn't bother for, so it will do obviously bother for case sensitivity. So it looks for exactly the comparison. And that is why this has been followed. So it's very obviously very much suggested so that your code is very tight, right? So if I come in and say MAY in capital letter, then click on OK. Right? MAY. Okay. Then it tells me welcome May. Now, you notice that anything I type, so I mean, let's acknowledge the fact that that very comparison has been covered here, right? We strictly checked for it. Now, what if we don't want to so let's change this, right? Instead of user not found, you can say well done if it's May, won't say well done. But if it's another one, if it's any other person, we just want to say welcome. Right? So what if we then come here to say MAY? What does it tell us? That's a well done name, right? However, if I type in Mukhtar or any other name, it tells me welcome Mukhtar. So we can then condition the different messages we want to show to different users at different points in times, right? I did not cover the DOM manipulation of this. So what if we want to change the value of this? Remember that it's empty. We didn't put any value here. So we always want to display whatever value we have there. So just in the case of Mukhtar now, we then want to come here to say, don't forget, let's call the username here, which is for elements, right? We can then come here to say, this.text content is equal to let's say let's call it prompted. So we don't even need this else again. Let's get rid of this else, right? Yep. So we can say so what text content does is to change the content of that very item. Want to change whatever. In short, we don't even need the if again. Let's just always update it. Whatever you enter here, we want to change the text of this, right? So that means whatever we enter here, we enter what is your name. The value we get here, which is stored here, we want to then put it inside here on the DOM. So we want to display here. So we can say, so my input is the name. My name is Mukhtar Yusuf. And again, whatever I type in shows up here, right? So let's change it again. I want it to just be Yusuf alone, right? Okay. Okay, my typo got me there, but you can see. So these are manipulated DOM. These are we can change this. So in this very lesson, we've seen how we can style our page, create a button, click a button, we can take some certain actions. In short, we can even change the CSS of the page from JavaScript itself, which is when we click a button. We want not just to input the name or the value on the screen. We also want to change the color of it, right? We can do a lot of things right from the action. So anything you can imagine, you can do it, right? So this brings us to the end of DOM manipulation, right? So I can take in your questions now. So for the API setup thing, because time is pretty much against us already, right? We would start API and access API via JavaScript in the next class. And also, where testing then comes to play a part, we would then go into Cypress as well. So we would have to then compare the behavior of tests of different scenarios when it comes to using Cypress to test. Now, all of this will then make sense to you by the time you start using it in Cypress. So what variables are to manipulate the DOM, how to target the DOM. What if you want to check that if this is truly a submit text that is here? What you want to test that the right answer or an input has been added to the screen after the person entered their what's it called, their value, right? We can also test for that. So we can use Cypress to then continue from here and test all of these things. That brings to the end of this. So I'm going to go to the chat to answer all of the questions. So you guys can type in your questions while I go through the chat. Thank you. I'm going to start with source installed. Awesome. Not clear. I mean, VS Code. Okay, so I'm going to start with this first one here. In case I miss anyone, please call my attention back to it. Feel free, please. So the first one I see here is how can we get access to different color codes? So color codes are like, it varies a lot. I think because I've used them so much, I know a bit of them in my head. Well, ideally, again, don't forget that you can always type the name, just the title of the color. So you can literally type in blue, yellow, orange as you want. But if you want color codes, right? You can once Google search the color code, the equivalent of that color. So when you get it to them, put the entire code. VS code is equal to the color itself. Then select any range of thing you want. So if I want to go to this range, I can come here to select the shade I want from my browser. Once that the color would have changed, right? So you can also toy around here, and you can see how to be, but X is X. So let me go through the next question here. I'm so sorry for this. Like that, you guys are pretty sure the network. So what the difference between this double equal to and the triple one? I believe I've answered that where a strict comparison, you use so some answer maybe. I like this, which is actually puts it. If you hear this, it does the thinking, right? It holds the configuration and whatever instruction you tell it. We want a page to behave a certain way. You check talking, which is true, which is body is what shows you what you ought to see on the screen. But so what's the actual functions? It really is literally in exactly what you said. Head doing the thinking, right? You don't need to see anything there. So as far as you have the head, configurations like the title of your page, like for example, if you look at we have Microsoft Teams meeting here. The way Microsoft entered this title here is literally the head of their application as well. So if I inspect, you can inspect any page, by the way, any page you have. So if you come to element here, inside their head, this is their own head. Now, in the head here, you would find different configuration. You can see ours were small, but theirs is a lot. They even have like media creative configurations here. So all of this you do not need to bother about them. But what we're looking for here exactly is title. So we come here to say title here. So whatever we find here, which is Microsoft Teams meeting, blah, 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 that's exactly what you would find, right? So in a nutshell, head holds the configuration of the field. There's some configurations that are very specific and we have to put them in the head. Now, even when Google bot comes to your page, try to see the configurations you put there, right? Before then going to the body. Now, what the body does is to render everything you have inside of this, from the buttons to the text, to the images, to the video, everything goes inside the body. So it literally does the talking itself. How about answer that? How do I know what keyword to use when I need to include by hear you clearly? You can hear me clearly. I hope you guys can hear me. Let me try to change. Okay, I think this should work well. All right. I'm going to try to speak up louder as well. So when it comes to variable keyword, it's very important to get it right from the start, right? Now, I've experienced scenarios where engineers or developers write variable names, and what they're writing there does not even make sense. Like they just write anything just because they want to name something and just move forward. But the fundamental right all of this name, right, is to think about what you're trying. So if you look at my examples where I was using username, in short, there's only the time I had to come and change this from username to prompted username, right? Even though we're there, and the reason why I also change this from to username, if any other developer sees this, they're going to automatically know exactly what I'm doing, right? And what's that variable name for. So when you see a variable name, before you even read what is being assigned to the variable, you already have an idea. Like someone giving you a cheat code ahead, right? So what that does is to then give you the correlation between the name and the value. So when you now see the value, the variable name will then make more sense to you. So now I didn't just call this username, I call this prompted username, meaning that there's a prompt involved. And the value of that prompt, right, is given here. Now, if you then really need it, the question that I'm adding here as well is called, what is your name? Right? So what is your name? And then go back to the variable name. You then see that it makes sense. But again, I had a query, and what I'm trying to save there is the username. So the question then matches the syntax that I use, right? Same as here, I said username here. Here means elements. Now, when you come across a lot of codes, the ones written by you and the ones written by others, you would find these variations, but there will always be a consistency across board, right? So you just have to join that very practice to be sure that you're also naming your variable right. But also, if you don't name it right, when people pick up your code, they will be confused. It is when they now read the value, they will now start trying to make sense of what the variable name is. And the name is supposed to make sense first before the value. So also the var let as well as const, and they're all used in different scenarios. So we have it here. Var is accessible globally. It means that if I have another script right on that page, right, another script file here, as far as both of them were loaded up in the same page, I can have access to this page, meaning that I can have a script too if they were both loaded up here. So I have another, you can have multiple scripts. Let's say I have another which is script 2, right? And I create a file here. Inside that script 2, I can, if I console.log or I try to access the value of this age from there, I'm going to have access to it. But if I try to access it won't work because this is hooked to this file. So what about last name? Last name is scope here. But the difference between let and const is that I can always come here to change the value of Mukhtar here. And for last name as well, I cannot change it because I've already declared the value for it. So this is used when you don't want any change in behavior at all. You don't want the value to ever change. Now, the reason why var is strongly advised not to be used is that imagine how you can access the value of age from another file entirely, right? So when you see someone's code and you see the person just using age, you'll be wondering where is the age coming from because it is not on this page that I'm seeing. So it causes confusion more than it is all to serve its purpose. So that's one of the reasons why you don't use it. Also, I can also from that file change the value of age to another number to another thing entirely. I can decide to say from that file, age is equal to 19 or 10. However, when you now see the computation of age here, we then use it inside one of these our functions. We then be wondering why the value is all of a sudden changing to another number. So this is why this var usually advised that you really advise that you don't, right? So, but again, it has its own use case. But there's some use cases the way you want a certain value to be available to every script. You can see that's perfect. That's the perfect scenario. In that scenario, you cannot use let, you cannot use const, you can only use var because again, that value isn't available across board. Right. So if you wanted this prompted username to be available across board, right, we'll then engineer this to say, let's say we have a variable here. You can say age is equal to prompted username. So everybody again across all the scripts gets updated. So they can always access that new value. So that's about it. Okay, question. Could you please clarify the intention of line 49? Also.log. I would love to know whether this word meant as a quick debug checkpoint or if our code I wanted to. Oh, okay, good. Commenting and logging, which is why that practice is also still here. So for debugging purpose is where you column sort of log. There's no live scenario of when you need to use relation to debug. So a lot of times something is wrong. A user tells you that well, I'm trying to log in, but it's not working, right? However, if you test on your own computer, it's working. So how do you then simulate the behavior of that? Sometimes you want to log something in so that you can use it for extra debugging. An issue. Let's say you're then on a call with them. You can tell them to share the screen. You can let's say particular to this very user, and that's facing it. So it might even be a user case like that. It could be that you want to see what a certain response is or a log is when you deploy your application. So this is so yes, to answer the question, we use it for debugging as well. But usually what I do is when I'm done with my code, I usually refactor my code and clear out all the console logs, right? But in yesterday's class, I intentionally left it so that you can know how we can comment out the code, how we can also use a console.log. Also use the use of comment as well. And I hope I've also answered that. So a lot of times it's also a best practice to clean out all your console.logs that you have in your applications before you take your application online, right? I believe this is the last of our question. If you want to ask a question or you don't want to type it as well, you please feel free as well. But I'll assume that's the last question of the day. So at the end of this class, now we have we've filtered variables, we've filtered different data types, we've filtered functions, how to call functions, how to load up items on the browser, on the UI. UI is the same thing as browser, which is what we see, right? What you see is the user interface. That is just from of what that is. So we've also been able to manipulate the DOM, bind our event to a button, a function to a button, so that's all of our purpose. So in the next step, we're going to go a step further by looking into API, what it means, and also how to introduce Cypress. which is a tool using testing. It's a JavaScript framework as well that I can use to test our UIs as well. I think some of us have access to this chat as well. So just in case you also have questions, you can drop it, and I'll be sure to also drop answers as soon as I see them. So thank you very much for your time, guys. Do have a good evening.
Thank you so much for your time and efforts. Have a blissful new week.
Gracias.
All right.
Thank you, Adishala.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, thank you. Bye.